This is week 10 and we're going to be looking at Salvador Dali and producing our own almost like dreamscape based on surrealism. So for this demo I'm going to just use one of his pieces called the Enigma of Hitler, and I've chosen it because of the subdued colours used, and I would like to just show you sort of the detailing on his work and how to approach that. So for this one I painted a grey background first, and then I drew in over the top my objects. So he tends to have objects that are misplaced, everyday objects like the plate, telephone. In this one, the telephone and the umbrella are supposed to symbolise the negotiations between Hitler and Chamberlain. I haven't included everything on the image, so I'm just going to show you how to start to build up your layers, reminding you that you're working on acrylics, so you're working from dark to light. So for instance, if I'm working on the sky area, I'm limiting my palette just to white, grey, yellow, lemon yellow, black, and also some burnt umber, so very muted and subdued. And I'm just going to use as well quite small brushes for the detail. So the sky I've started to work into, and it will take probably several layers to do. So I'm starting with a middle tone, and I will come in with some streaks of lighter white to just show the highlights of the clouds, just to show the edges. And varying my brush strokes as well, just so I've got a slightly textural quality to them. And using your base colour, which is the dark grey here, as your basically your background colour. And for most of his work you will see this sort of elements of transparency as well. So for instance, the umbrella is painted almost transparent. So I'm not going to be able to do the whole of the painting, so I'm just going to show you sections and areas, and then I'll finish it and show it to you in the lesson. So for the telephone itself, I've done an initial black background, and then I'm going to mix up a grey mixed with a tiny bit of yellow, lemon yellow, and I will then put in my mid-tones on top of the black. So the size of your brush as well needs to be medium to small, depending on the scale of your actual piece. So I'm just going to darken my grey a tiny bit for these highlights on the telephone, just to make them a little bit softer. But just by very sort of simple lines, you don't need to put too many marks in. You can start to show the 3D form of the object. So the other area I'm going to put in is along the handle as a sort of curved line. You do need a steady hand for these more detailed objects that you're going to be painting. So if you find that quite difficult, just try not to rush, just really steadily put your marks down, and remember that with acrylic, if you make a slight mistake, you can come in with your colour and just correct it. So I'm coming in with black just to make that slightly finer. I'm also going to bring in some much lighter white highlights on the phone as well, once I've finished with the mid-tones. You very often as well will have not only man-made objects but natural objects like trees. So when you're painting your trees, again, put a base colour down first, and for all your objects, just cover the whole area with one base colour first and make sure that's the darker tone. So I'm going to put some very, very light areas just to sort of emphasise the shiny, I think it's Bakelite plastic phone. Again, just subtle small marks will be enough. And I will return to the phone. I'm just going to move on now and look at the tree with you. So I've got a greeny brown put down, and I'm just going to define the tree a little bit more and give it a bit more dark shadow by mixing my brown and my black with a small amount of green as well. And I'm going to use a really very fine brush. And just come in and add a sort of darker shadow to the edge of the branch of the tree. Again, we're trying to create a feeling of a dreamlike imaginary landscape. So by putting in shadows and casting a slightly sort of atmospheric feel to your painting, you'll create more of a dreamlike feeling. The light as well, so you will have a light source. You need to be aware of where the light is coming from in the landscape. And obviously the objects themselves will cast strong shadows, which will give you a little bit more definition. Remember, this is your painting, and to create it in your own way. So you can adapt and just use elements of Dali's work as a starting point, and then from that you can make it more your own. Again, remember as well things such as your middle ground, your foreground and your background, and how you can create a sense of space through your tones and your colours. So I'm going to show you another area now. This is my middle area of the mountains. So I'm going to define them by using white paint just to make them stand out. So I'm going to do a line just to sort of define them. And make them stand out against the sky. I've also got this drip of water here, which I'm also going to define, but I'm going to use black paint rather than white. There's still more to put into the sky. So these are quite slow paintings to produce, so you're going to be working on them for a while. Give yourself time with it. So for instance, with the bubble, the drip of water, again a very, very fine line. It's going to be a lot about painting in a very sort of fine, detailed way. And add in some other tones to suggest the transparency. So I'm going to bring in some white as well. The plate, again, I've just put a base colour in, and I'm going to bring in some grey tones. So I'm mixing my grey with some yellow and white to get a sort of very grey yellow coming in to suggest where the shadows are. So we want these objects to stand out. I haven't included everything that Dali did, so I'm just showing you the basic shapes. So because this is a larger area, you can put in larger blocks of tone. Just to emphasize where you've got shadow and where you've got light. So all these areas you will be revisiting. So obviously with this one I've got a dark area in the foreground here, so I've put in this dark shadow already. So I'm also going to put in a dark shadow in the foreground to help that have more atmosphere. So I'm going to mix my black with some brown and a little pale bit of grey as well, so that I can start to bring in this shadow. So by using strong shadows, you're creating a lot of space and depth in your work. So be very aware of giving your objects some nice, strong, defined shadows to make your objects really stand out in your composition. I'm going to stop there, and I will continue with the painting and show you the finished result in the lesson. So have a good think about what you're going to do for Wednesday's lesson, and just give it some thought in terms of how you want to convey these objects that you've chosen, and also think about your background colour which you could paint before the lesson. Okay, thank you for watching.